starting tomorrow, the men, according to Preston Thorne, will start their crusade to the men's SEC tournament title up in Nashville.
It's 0-0. Everybody's even. Opportunities in front of them. All their goals are still ahead of them.
New goals.
Major goals. The major goals are still ahead of them.
Good point.
Still win the tournament. Still get into the tournament.
And if they win the tournament, they get into the big dance, right?
That's right. We put our dancing shoes on.
All of our goals are ahead of us, Bill.
Nothing has been eliminated just yet, is what you're trying to get at.
I don't like the way you phrased that. No one has been eliminated. Period. Now, don't add the just yet.
Well,
no one has been eliminated.
It's well, I shouldn't say for everybody because like last night, technically Furman got eliminated. But to your point, what you're talking about there, which you ready for my real quick rant?
Sure.
You ready for my old man, I love basketball and I hate the way we do things rant?
Let's do it.
This is stupid.
Okay.
Okay, you play 18 games. Conference games, over the course of a little over 2 months, and it's irrelevant because this is what determines who goes to the NCAA tournament from your conference. You could be 18-0 in conference. You could be 18-0. A team could be 0-18, or in some cases 2-16. And if they win 5 games in 5 days, guess who gets the automatic bid?
Correct.
Now, granted, if you're 18-0 in conference, that generally means you're going to get an at-large bid. You've done enough. I get that.
Also, if you're 2-16, you more than likely won't win 5 games. More than likely.
All very true.
Yes.
But I don't like the way we do this because of the old adage. I forget it. We used to use it every year. Kentucky could have all 5 starters riding in a car to their opening game, get in a car crash, be injured for 4 months, show back up in March, be 0-32 and win 5 games because they're 5 McDonald's All-Americans. This was under John Calipari. And they get to go to the NCAA tournament.
Well, I think this is where it gets really interesting because we just finished opining about the ACC tournament and how special that is, how special that was, because they all were under the agreement that this is something that is special.
Notre Dame. Doesn't that bring back memories of the 80s and the 90s of those great ACC matchups that, hey, even I grew up watching. Now, nobody grew up watching this. But that's where the ACC tournament is these days. And maybe it's why the ACC tournament, along with moving their tournament around, we talked about the SEC, the women's side of things, kind of really establishing Greenville as the central location, as the base for the SEC women's tournament. And the ACC a few years ago with the men's tournament moving it up to Brooklyn, going up to, I think it was the Barclays Center up there and playing the tournament there and kind of bouncing it around. They'll be in Charlotte at the Spectrum Center starting today. And again, the ACC tournament and the Big East tournament for that matter. Big East gets going tomorrow. But the ACC tournament and the Big East tournament are the two that I really remember growing up watching at this point in the basketball season, at this point in conference championship week. And I didn't have a rooting interest. Oh, I guess I'll openly admit I rooted against Clemson, but I didn't have a rooting interest in those tournaments, but they were fun to watch. The Big East taking place at Madison Square Garden. I would remember, I think on Wednesdays, that was always the first tournament back in the day when I was 10, 11, 12. So we're talking about 30 years ago, 31. But I would remember, being home or coming home and watching the Big East tournament and watching the ACC tournament. And today we get the ACC tournament going 2 o'clock. Pittsburgh and Notre Dame. And if that doesn't bring back nostalgia of the great ACC days, how about the 4:30 game? This one's really going to bring back nostalgia. California and Virginia Tech. Remember those great? No, you don't. You don't remember that either? No? Okay, yeah, none of us do. California and Virginia Tech, 4:30 today in the ACC tournament. Again, that up there in Charlotte. Later on tonight, Syracuse and Florida State. Final game for Leonard Hamilton. A very good career for Leonard Hamilton. Been a lot of places, but has led Florida State for a long time there. And Syracuse and Florida State will meet tonight at 7 o'clock in the third ACC game of the day. And then starting tomorrow, of course, we'll have coverage for you of the SEC tournament, which it's going to be interesting this year. Yesterday, I say yesterday, but overall, the last 2 days, big days, last 2-3 days, big days for former South Carolina football players. Preston and I were talking about this earlier, and we went down a bad path. And if you got up early and you were in a bad mood, and we started reading off the names of the South Carolina 2019 defense, the 2019 team for Will Muschamp that went 4-8, you were like, how in the world did that defense go 4-8? How did they fall apart the way they did? Your front five, your front four with an extra player, DJ Wanham, Javon Kinlaw, Zach Pickens, JJ Enigbare, and Kier Thomas. That was the five guys on the defensive line. Pickens was a freshman that year. TJ Brunson, who got a cup of coffee in the NFL, and Ernest Jones were your linebackers, and your defensive backs were J.C. Horn and Israel Mukuamu. They were backed up by Darius Rush and Cam Smith. Well, over the last few days, we've seen Ernest Jones sign a nice little contract with the Seattle Seahawks. And yesterday, Javon Kinlaw got signed. And I don't know how Kinlaw has really been. You get kind of differing opinions on his performance so far in the NFL with the 49ers and with the Jets. Kinlaw, though, is signed basically what Washington thinks is maybe the replacement to Jonathan Allen. But Kinlaw's contract, pretty impressive given that, again, I don't think the numbers are there to support it. But Kinlaw gets a 3-year, $45 million contract. Now, I always don't pay attention to what the actual total of the deal is. I pay attention to what is guaranteed. Kinlaw's getting $30 million guaranteed. So 3 years, $30 million guaranteed. So if he can make it to the end of his contract, he gets an extra $15 million. But not a bad contract for Javon Kinlaw. So now you think about that. Ernest Jones got a 3-year, $33 million deal, I believe. Kinlaw gets 3 years, $45 million. And the big one yesterday, J.C. Horn, 4 years, $100 million. He becomes the highest paid defensive back in the league. The deal includes $70 million guaranteed. So how about that? J.C. Horn, 4 years, $100 million. That's a contract extension. I mentioned maybe last week we were doing the show, and I talked about the CBS Sports mock draft that had Nick Emmanwori going number 8 to the Panthers. But the Panthers locking up J.C. Horn now, 4 years, $100 million, but again, $70 million of that guaranteed. And interesting because, again, I think Horn's been fine. I don't think he's been bad by any stretch of the imagination. But is he $70 million guaranteed? Great. $100 million total? Again, that's another player. Talk about A.J. Lawson, talk about Ethan Petrie. Currently, J.C. Horn was perfectly fine here. Wasn't a bad player, but do we put him up there with the Sheldon Browns, with the Dante Robinsons, who was a top 10 pick, I think, the Stephon Gilmores of our past? I don't know where we rank J.C. Horn, but he's going to get paid, and he's going to enjoy some nice time there with the Panthers. 4 years, $100 million, again, $70 million of that guaranteed.